research projects. You know, next thing I'm going to talk about is the 8th house. So I say we take a break before we go right from Lakshmi to the 8th house. 8th house is about losses and debts. Debt. Debt, like owing money. Yeah. Loans.
And longevity.
And longevity. Well, Parashara only mentions longevity. We'll see. When Jupiter changes signs, according to tradition, we open up Parashara and we read the natural house of that sign. So the natural house, Jupiter just moved into Scorpio, the natural house of Scorpio is the 8th house. So we'll just together read through the 8th house chapter and then we'll begin Aruda stuff. So let's take a short break. We'll read through the 8th house stuff and then we'll take a long break before we begin Aruda. Okay, so everybody know why we're reading this chapter right now?
Well,
Why are we reading the 8th house chapter?
you said because Jupiter began its transit through Scorpio, and that's the natural 8th house.
And so we're reading this. If you remember last year when Jupiter entered Libra, what did we read?
7th house.
7th house chapter. And you remember all the stuff in that chapter, right?
Oh yeah. Fun stuff.
Whew.
Page
Fun stuff.
159?
Well,
159 in the, that's the,
169.
that's the,
What's it called? Saptama?
that's the Santanam. Santanam 159, Sharma 250. So who wants to read the first one? I'll read the first one. O excellent Brahmin, now I explain to you the effects of the 8th house. If the 8th lord is placed in Kendra or an angle, it gives long life to the native. What's that mean? Somebody put that in another word for me.
It means if it's in houses 1, 4.
No. Okay.
No.
Sum it up. Shorter. Not longer.
It's in the Kendra or the
Well placed. If the 8th lord is well placed, it means that there's more longevity. Right? Well placed 8th lord strengthens that 8th house, meaning it strengthens our longevity.
Yeah, but well placed is a complicated.
Well played.
It's a very complicated calculation. But that's our principle to begin with. Okay, so we have that principle.
So it says Kendra. I mean, trine also should apply, right? In case of well placed, if it is
Kendra or trine? It says Kendra or angle.
We have a different version. Ours
What's it
doesn't
say?
Ours doesn't say.
Sanskrit word only says Kendra.
It says.
Oh, you read the Sanskrit?
Yeah, it says Kendra.
Yeah, it just says Kendra.
Not true.
Then what's you got or angle? Okay,
Angle
so
is
Kendra.
actually the Kendra, right?
Hmm?
Angle is the same.
It's Kendra, yeah.
Trine is.
I thought it was a wrong translation.
When it says
Trine is.
it says Ayusta Nagipaha. What is maybe that refers to Trikona
No,
or
no,
something?
No.
Is it supposed to be angle or trine?
No,
Angle.
This is Dhipa. This is not
So it's kind of
Dhipa.
redundant.
This is like Adhipa.
Yeah,
Adhipa is the
it's
lord.
a bad
Oh, that's a
Lord,
duh,
Lord.
not
Yeah,
a dha.
no, yeah, dha.
It's just a typo.
So Ayusthana Dhipa means the lord of the Ayusthana, that is
Yeah,
8th house.
Ayusta Nagipati, yeah.
Yeah, Adhipati, yeah.
Okay.
So 8th lord well placed gives long life.
Particularly Kendra.
Yes.
The 8th lord, together with a malefic planet, is placed in the 8th house itself, and the ascendant lord also situated there. This combination will make the native short-lived. So it's saying 8th lord with a malefic, and 8th lord in the 8th house itself, and the ascendant lord in the 8th house. So if we look at the factors, it's showing a weak, a not well-placed ascendant lord, and an afflicted 8th lord. It's with a malefic, it's in the 8th house. So it's afflicted 8th lord and an afflicted Lagna lord. Makes the native short-lived.
But 8th lord in 8th house is a good placement, right? It is Saral, it
By
is what
itself.
some yoga. I forgot the name of the yoga.
By itself.
Some people say it's good. Did Parashara just tell us it's good, or did he just say it gives short life?
Yeah, but
What did he just...
He
It
didn't
says-
say
it said with
the
him
eighth
and
house
with
alone in
It
its
says
own
and
house.
the ascendant.
The 8th lord?
ascendant was
with the Lugna Lord and a malefic.
But if the eighth lord was alone in the eighth house, it would strengthen the eighth house, wouldn't it?
You know,
There's
there's multiple opinions. Right here, we're not seeing that. Generally, we'll read a few more, and you'll see what Parashara does is he clumps together factors. Like, he won't take one or two good factors, throw it with a bad factor, and give the result. He'll give us a bunch of bad factors, a bad result. A bunch of good factors, a good result. And with that, we understand that, okay, so all these factors good, we get the good result. But we'll also get a kind of good result if we have just one of those good factors.
So, do you guys want to hear? So, if the eighth lord is in the eighth by itself, the native will be long-lived. If the said planet be weak, being in the eighth, the longevity will be medium, and the native will be a thief, be blameworthy, and will blame others well. Right? So that's just the eighth lord by itself in the eighth house. The Lugna lord by itself in the eighth house is also not that bad.
What is that you're reading from?
Parashara in
Parashara.
chapter 24. If Lugnesha is in the eighth house, the native will be an accomplished scholar, be sickly, thievish, and given to much anger, be a gambler, and will join others' wives.
Doesn't say anything longevity, though, does it?
It says sickly, but it didn't mention anything about Ayush.
That's not necessarily very good, but anyway.
We can see, though, that neither combination is really a good combination.
Except eighth lord in eighth house is good.
What did it say about eighth lord and
Yeah,
eighth house?
it's a
It said it was good, but if it's weak, then he's a thief
If it's
and
strong.
sickly.
If
And,
it's
If
weak,
it's strong. If it's weak, then...
it's bad.
And the combination he gave us, it being weak, was conjunct a malefic. So that malefic conjunction is making it weak.
Or if the lord itself is debilitated in the eighth house.
Number 3.
Okay. Somebody else want to read number 3? Mo.
Saturn and 10th lord above longevity. Similarly, consider Saturn and 10th lord in the matter of longevity. 10th lord is in 8th along with the malefic planet and or Lugna lord. My translation doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You're the
It's
probably-
a bit more than...
yeah.
You want to try? Go, Stace.
Wait, where's
The learned astrologer. The learned astrologer should consider the longevity of the native in the same manner from Saturn and the 10th lord.
That's it. So what's it telling us there? What's Saturn have to do with longevity?
Saturn's in the 8th.
It's
Karka the eighth?
He's the Karaka of the 8th, and he's also the Karaka of longevity. He's the Karaka of death. So Saturn is also an important factor to indicate the longevity. What's the 10th lord have to do with longevity? And this is repeated in multiple texts about the 10th lord. I don't expect you to have the answer, so don't worry.
It's the third house from the eighth, so
It's third from the eighth.
It's Parakrama of longevity.
It's a very important house in longevity calculations, and we won't go into those calculations today, but I was talking earlier about how Jaimini mentions stuff that Parashara doesn't. Jaimini gives multiple calculations about how to calculate how long somebody lives, and he's utilizing the 10th house, the Hora Lugna, all these factors. Now you could say that's Jaimini astrology, but right here, Parashara is telling us to take the 10th house into account. He doesn't tell us how to take it into account. Jaimini does.
That's true. Parashara's kind of alluding to the method of the three pairs.
He is alluding to the
He's
method
talking
of the
about
three
the
pairs.
Lugnesha and 10th lord.
But he doesn't give it.
Right.
Jaimini does.
Right. Wow.
Okay. 4 to 7. Go for it, Mukesh.
Long life. There would be long life if the 6th lord is in the 12th, or if the 6th lord is in the 6th, as the 12th lord. As the 12th lord is in the 12th, or if the 6th lord and 12th lord are in the ascendant and the 8th. So 6th lord is in the 12th, or if the 6th lord is in the 6th, as the 12th lord is in the 12th, or if 6th lord and 12th lord are in the ascendant and the 8th.
So give me your interpretation on that verse. It's a juggle there, right?
Yeah, so sixth lord being in 6th or 12th apparently is a good combination.
Mm-hmm.
And 6th lord And 12th lord in the 8th is also a good combination.
Okay. But it also mentions if they're in the ascendant.
Yeah.
That's a confusing one, isn't it?
Because there's an ascendant.
You see that? In the 12th, it's giving us a viparita, right? The lord of disease goes to the house of loss. So you lose your disease. Makes sense, right? The lord of loss goes to the house of disease. So the disease is lost. Again, that makes sense. Going to the ascendant, that doesn't make sense to me. I can't say I understand that one. Not yet. Okay, next.
Continuing.
Yeah.
If the lords of the 5th, 8th and ascendant are in own navamshas, own rashis, or in friendly signs, the native will enjoy a long span of life.
Okay, what's the 5th lord have to do with longevity?
It's
Come on.
8th from the 10th.
It's 8th from the 10th, but that's not the reason.
No.
Tenth from the
It's the 10th from the 10th. Or 10th from the 8th. Yeah.
Oh, it's 10th from the 8th.
Why is the 10th house?
Because that's third from the 8th.
It's
So
3rd from the 8th. The 5th house? It's 3rd from the 3rd.
Oh, 3rd from the 3rd. So
The
it's another
8th
vitality
house and
there.
the 3rd house are the houses of longevity.
Oh.
And the 3rd from each of them shows the death of that longevity. Just like the 12th from shows the loss of that longevity.
The 3rd shows the death of longevity.
The 3rd and the 8th house show longevity. Right? The 8th house is the house of longevity. 8th from the 8th is the 3rd. So it's the longevity of the longevity. So those are our two houses of longevity. What are the Marika houses?
3 and 7.
2 and 7.
No.
2 and 7.
2 and 7, which are what from the 3 and 8?
12th house.
They're 12. So they're showing what makes you lose your longevity.
Oh.
What's taking away your longevity. So that's what's cutting the longevity. It's what's it's where you're losing that. The 3rd house is showing what is the natural ending of the longevity. So 3rd from the 8th and 3rd from the 3rd is what's, and we'll talk about 3rd from Aruda Lagna in a little bit. That's what we'll be talking about next. And the 3rd from Aruda Lagna shows where and how you'll die. This is about how much life you have in you. So Jaimini as well gives multiple combinations about the 5th house for longevity. In the 3rd adhyaya. But here it's not 100% clear. He doesn't give the full breakdown that we'll get in Jaimini. Jaimini focuses a lot on death calculation.
And it also says a lot of ascendant, which is also natural.
Well, that's natural. Almost all of them involve the ascendant somehow. If you notice, almost every verse for the longevity. So we're looking at the Lagna Lord and the 8th Lord almost always for longevity.
Everything except for the first.
For the first one.
The first one's just the 8th.
But it's in Kendra. Kendra from what?
True.
Kendra from the Lagna.
True.
So.
Yeah, Lagna itself is again.
But then any Baba placement, something.
Yeah, but it's,
Freedom.
Yes.
Other than just curiosity, why would anybody want to know, or the Jyotishi need to know the exact time and cause for a person's death?
I'll tell you the few times that I've used it. One, there was a woman here in California, and her grandmother lived in New Jersey. And her grandmother was sick and going to die. Now she had a job here, and if she went back, and too much, she'd lose her job. They understood that her grandma was dying, but they needed somebody in the position. She couldn't just leave. Visti and I calculated when her grandmother would die. So she knew when to fly back on time. I personally experienced it when my own father, I was in India, in Varanasi, learning Sanskrit. And my father was dying with lung cancer. And I had flown home, been with him a few months. The doctors said a few months to 3 years. So I couldn't just sit home for 3 years. It just did, So I went back to Varanasi. But, in Varanasi, if I needed to fly to New Jersey, it doesn't happen like that. I gotta fly, train or fly to Delhi, and then fly to Europe, and then fly back to the East Coast. And so it's quite a process, and not cheap either. So I did the death calculations for my own father to make sure I was there, and I was there the week before he died, so I could spend that time period with him. If you see a client doing Ayurveda, and your treatment, if there's somebody who's terminal with cancer, you want to calculate how much longer they have to live, because it's very important as a Ayurvedic practitioner. If they're going to die in 3 weeks, the medicine is not an herb. You're done with herbs at that point. If they have 3 weeks to live, the medicine is about meditation and worshiping God and how to accept death and how to transfer over. That's the medicine to give a person who has 3 weeks to live. Not herbs. You don't give them magic pills at that point, because you're wasting the magic pills. They're going to die in 3 weeks. If you, no more trifle. It's so so those are the situations that it becomes important.
And also in India, it's a very common question. People just want to know when they would die.
Yeah, curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, if people just out here, it's not so common, but in India, so many people go to astrologers and ask these questions.
It's like a thrill.
There's also dashas that are based on your lifespan. So if you know how long your lifespan is, then you could subdivide it and calculate the dashas appropriately for your life.
Yeah, there's different dashas depending on how old you're going to live. I had a woman once from North Carolina, and I think she was Indian. The name seemed Indian, and she wanted to know when her mother-in-law was going to die. I didn't, she wanted a full reading. I just didn't reply. When your mother-in-law is going to die, there was just something, in the email, it didn't feel right. There was a negative reason that she wanted to know when the mother-in-law was going to die, so I didn't answer it. So we have to, and that's why if you notice this, Parashara is mentioning the points that calculate longevity, but he's not being specific. Jaimini is specific, but Jaimini is written in a very dense language that you need somebody to decode for you. So Jaimini hit it in a different way. Parashara is mentioning the primary indications. The important thing to notice is that we're talking about the 8th house, and has he talked about loans or debts or anything?
Mm-hmm.
He's primarily focusing on longevity. And that's an important thing for us to understand about the 8th house. So, yeah. Important reason, right? Very important to calculate.
Really
Yeah. Practical. You want to read one more?
Sure.
Eric's got it.
Okay. Go for it.
Should the lords of the ascendant, 8th and 10th, and Saturn are all disposed severally in an angle, in a trine, or in the 11th, the subject will live long. Like these, there are many other yogas dealing with the issue of longevity. The strength and weakness of the planets concerned be estimated in deciding longevity.
Okay. So here, again, he's giving us the indications. The 8th Lord, the 10th Lord, the Ascendant Lord, and the Karaka Saturn. And you'll see in Jaimini, he again repeats this. It's repeated, and it's very important for longevity. Notice he didn't mention the 5th Lord here. 5th Lord, in general, I use the 5th Lord to see what day the person will die.
Then you say day means like
The
Monday,
day of the
Monday,
month.
Tuesday, or day of the month.
Generally, you look at the number of days that have passed since Sankranti. You're using the A8 to see the month, and then Sankranti is the day the sun changes signs. For those who don't know.
Only Makar, any Sankranti or Makar Sankranti?
No, Sankranti. Any Sankranti. Because you're using the root of the 8th house to calculate the month. You already know which month, which sign that the sun is going to be transiting that death will occur. And then I use the 5th house, and that tells me how many days after the sun has entered that sign will the person die. So the stress isn't as much laid on the 5th house, but the stress is still again laid on the 10th house as an important aspect of longevity. And if you ever go into in-depth studying with longevity, the 10th lord is important.
When you're saying that 10th lord, is that the same thing as the ruler?
The planet ruling the 10th house. Yeah. So your 10th house is ruled by what sign?
Gemini.
Gemini.
Mercury.
So that
Or
your
Mercury.
10th lord is Mercury. Exactly. Now longevity, the last line there, Sharma translates it as longevity should be predicted according to the combination which is stronger among them. Jaimini talks a lot about, he gives us multiple combinations, and with those combinations we calculate and we take all the factors and we add them together and see what indication is being indicated. We don't just take one indication. We're taking multiple factors and we're adding them together and seeing what the result is. So it's not a simple concept. Visti Larson right now is working on an entire book on this topic. Who's going to go for the next verse? Go ahead, Ajaya. And you got to tell me why after.
Okay. The learned have spoken of other combinations of longevity in many other ways. Longevity should be predicted according to the combination which is stronger among them.
Okay, we did that one. Next.
Okay, if the 8th lord is in a Kendra and the ascendant lord is weak, the native's span of life will be between 20 and 32 years.
20 and 32. What does 20 and 32 mean? Why 20 and 32?
Alpayu and Madhyayu.
No, it's 36 to, it's 36 and 36 and 36. You divide the life.
36.
36, 72 and 108.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's for 108 years. Then you also have 120
There
year
might be a
division.
reduction of the longevity based on some factors.
The Lugna Lord is weak.
Is that
Before he said if the 8th Lord is in a Kendra, which is the indication here, right?
Yeah.
We have a long life. All of a sudden he says, but if the Lugna Lord is weak, you don't. And the person will die between 20 and 32. Why 20 and 32? Mo, come on, do some math. You got the good mathematical mind. I know you do. What house does 20 relate to?
8th house.
8th house. 20 is the 8th house all the way around again, right?
Oh, is that right?
Right? And 32? 8th house again. But it's not the first circuit of the 8th house, because he didn't say 8 to 20. So if we used a Nisargika house dasha, and we just went first year of life, first house, second year of life, second house, third year of life, third house, which we can do, right? We can do that, yeah? Yeah? You sure? We can do that. It's a very simple, it just shows the natural happening in our life. What's just naturally going to happen, and what year is it going to naturally happen? It's showing us that if that Lugna Lord is weak, it's not a Balarishta. Balarishta would be before 20. It would be early life dying. It's showing us that it's that second Sudarshana transit. So it goes all the way around, and after the second time around, that portion becomes a dangerous transit to the
Third.
person. The third. Okay. Mars should be involved for it to be, Okay. And we're almost done this chapter. Thank God. 7th house chapter was much more fun, wasn't it? You guys missed it. He was talking about some juicy stuff, 7th house. Why don't you go, Rob?
If the 8th Lord right there?
Mm-hmm.
If the 8th Lord is in his debilitation sign, the 8th house is occupied by a malefic planet. The ascendant Lord is weak. The native's life will be certainly short.
Okay, is there anything really new here?
Oh, sure.
How short? Prashara doesn't teach us. Jaimini does. Is there anything new? What's the first thing? If the 8th Lord is debilitated. So we already knew a weak 8th Lord shortens our life, right?
Right.
If the 8th house is occupied by a malefic planet, that's new. So malefics in the 8th house shorten life.
No, that's the second.
Huh?
The second thing I mentioned was that. Lagnesh in the 8th with a natural moon. Malefic.
So we already said it.
And the 8th
Yeah.
Lord.
I
Okay.
think the difference is here, all the three combinations he has given together. And
He's given them together, but nothing is new here. So he's giving us, and so as I said in the beginning, he gives us, he shows us all these things will give short life. He puts them all together, but each one of those shortens our life a little bit. So malefics in the 8th house will shorten our life a little bit. A weak 8th Lord will shorten our life a little bit. All these factors.
And the moon in the 8th house
Is a benefit.
it's good.
it's a bad thing, right? It's
I
Mara.
thought that
It's Marna Karkastana, but is it bad for longevity? Did he say it's bad for longevity? He hasn't mentioned that it's bad for longevity. What is it bad for?
Mind.
What aspect of mind?
Just the mental peace, happiness.
How?
Emotions.
What aspect of the emotions? What's Marna Karkastana moon?
Anger, tamasic, house.
The person will get angry, but why will they get angry?
I feel like they're dying. They're suffering.
How are they suffering?
Because their needs aren't getting met.
What kind of needs?
Their
Starving.
emotional needs
They're starving.
What kind of emotional needs?
for security.
Exactly.
Security.
The 8th house is the house of vulnerability. Who likes to feel vulnerable? Who likes to feel weak? Who likes to feel like somebody's poking their soft spots? So, moon in the 8th house needs their security needs met. When you approach them, you first approach them in a way that they feel safe. They need to feel safe. If you make them in any way feel unsafe, because the vulnerability is there, it's in the consciousness. They'll easily get angry or aggressive, but they're just protecting themselves. Because they're vulnerable. They feel vulnerable. Okay? That's moon in the 8th house. What, do you have moon in the 8th house? In the Navamsha. Well, that's a whole different story.
Now, could you generalize that to being moon in Scorpio as well?
Similar. It's similar energy, but not the same. Okay, we got a little bit left. Where are we?
When the 8th Lord is in conjunction with a malefic planet, and the 8th house is occupied malefic planets, and the 12th house is also occupied by malefic planets, the death of the native will be instant.
So the difference there is just malefics in the 12th, right? They make it come a little earlier. Now, instant, does this mean a death? This is not in the Balarishta chapter. Balarishta means childhood and death. To me, I think he's referring to a prashna chart here.
Prashna chart.
I think so. Death is instant. It means the person is going to die soon. To me, it's not in the Balarishta chapter. So it doesn't make sense.
But could it be like first month or first week, like that kind of thing?
Soon, yeah.
Would it mean that they were just going to like drop dead rather than suffer?
I've never seen the combination.
What could mean they're not
So at the moment, I can't give you my experiential opinion.
Could just mean they're not going to suffer. They're not going to go through
You-
it for long.
If it were true, you will never see a chart, right?
If it's true, actually though, we sometimes on the list people put charts of Balarishta, people that died, pretty early, infants that died.
Can you tell if somebody will die in their sleep or will die
Yeah, well,
violently? or
that's
will
going to
die-
be our next section. We see that in the third from Aruda Lagna. We see that third from Aruda Lagna, not in the 8th house. The 8th house is going to give us. It's more, if you notice, he's talking about how long are you going to live. So far, that's what he said. Go ahead, Rob.
In the event of the malefics falling in Kendra or Trikona, and the benefics in the 6th or the 8th house, and the 8th Lord in his debilitation occupying the ascendant, the native will have immediate death.
Okay. 8th Lord, is that what your translation says? 8th Lord, debility?
Translation is different here.
Okay, go for it.
fifth house, is it the right verse I'm reading? Fifth house, eighth house, and the eighth lord are all conjunct malefics. The lifespan will be very brief. Within a month of birth, death will be befall the child if the eighth lord is in the eighth itself, while the moon is with the malefics and be bereft of beneficial aspect. Is it the same verse?
I think you skipped the actual verse that he was reading.
Together, so.
It's one verse ahead.
Death will be instant and no. Okay,
Yeah.
malefics and angels, trines and benefics.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Malefics and angels, angels or trines and benefics in sixth, eighth, while the ascendant has in it the eighth lord in fall. This yoga will cause immediate end.
Okay. Somebody tell me which signs can have the eighth lord debilitated in the ascendant. Which sign has the eighth lord debilitated in the ascendant? Aries. Can the eighth lord be debilitated in the ascendant?
No.
Taurus?
No.
Come on now, quick. Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna.
Oh no.
Certain planets have a sign
Kanya.
that means they're
Virgo.
debilitated, they're fallen, they can't do anything.
No.
No one's got it yet. It's a good learning experience.
Scorpio.
Yes.
Capricorn? Or what did you suggest?
Capricorn, Cancer, Leo.
What's the eighth from Capricorn?
Sun debilitated.
It's Leo, right? Is Leo debilitated in Capricorn?
The sun, you mean the sun?
Sun, yeah.
The eighth
No,
lord.
it's afflicted.
Yeah, but it's not debilitated.
It's not debilitated.
Can you find any lagna that this rule will work?
Is there any lagna with
No.
the eighth?
No.
Oh, wow.
So there's something more going on here.
There is no.
There's a secret here that needs to be cracked. Because the rule will work if we understand it. So he could be talking about it could be debilitated in the Navamsha Lagna. Who knows? Hopefully Visti in his longevity studies will enlighten us about this verse. But it's not, it can't work, can it?
Well, what's the word they used to translate
Could it be indicating Rahu or Ketu?
Possible, but, then there's the two different, exaltation and debilitation points, so. Bottom line, there's more there than meets the eye. And this shows us, there's multiple verses like this, that if you read it only from the Lagna, don't work. But if you know how to read it, they work wonderfully. The next are just a little bit more in depth. I want to skip ahead to page 315 in the Sharma edition, Effects of Baba Lords. Okay. It was good to go over it twice, huh? Yeah. It sunk in more, at least for me.
There's some flyers in the back for this master.
There's Sharma. No,
Chapter
it's the middle.
24. Oh.
But you'll see it's Sloka 85.
85 in 24th chapter.
So what's your eighth house? What sign? The sign of your eighth house.
Aries.
Aries. So Mars is your eighth lord. What house is Mars in?
The third.
A third. So this is the section where Parashara tells us different placements of the eighth lord. Where's your eighth lord placed?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't have my chart.
At all. We're gonna have to fix that one of these days. You know how much do you know about when you're born?
In the evening time.
So you know that much.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's easy. So easy. Okay, everybody know which house their eighth lord is in? Do we have your chart? So her lagna is Sagittarius, meaning the eighth house is ruled by Cancer. The lord of Cancer is the moon, and the moon is placed in the second house. just like me. Unlucky.
What about Mars in the third?
We're getting there. Everybody knows, right?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't have my chart with me.
Okay. Well, just meditate on all of them then for the moment, since you don't have the chart. We're hitting the 8th Lord. If the 8th Lord happens to be placed in the ascendant, the native will be bereft of bodily pleasures, be a detractor of gods and Brahmins, and will have wounds. Bereft of bodily pleasures. No, the pleasures of the body are removed. Means they suffer a lot. And the suffering stops them from really enjoying their body. Detractor of the gods and Brahmins, it means that they speak negative things. They don't believe in gods, they don't believe in holy people, and they talk. As a detractor, they say negative things about that.
What about for Libra Lagan when it's Venus that rules Lagan and 8th Lord? This was Venus and Lagan.
There's a whole other rule about taking the 8th from the 8th and using the 3rd Lord instead. Yeah. Is that what you have?
No, this.
Okay, yeah. In general, you take the 3rd Lord instead, but this is general. You know, it has to be factored into everything else in the chart. So it's not going to be overall 100%. If the person has the 8th Lord in the Lagna, but Jupiter is in the 9th house, Jupiter in the 9th house will make them respectful to gurus and Brahmins and holy people and gods.
But in this case, if Venus also owns Lagan and Lagan Lord is in Lagan, right? Then why would he be devoid of physical felicity?
Then you're using the 3rd, you have to calculate all that stuff in there. If malefics are aspecting it, then it's going to be more likely to cause problems. If benefics are aspecting, then it's easily washing away all the problems.
You use aspects?
Yeah. Same. We use more aspects than
But
Western.
there's no degree. You don't use a degree, do you?
We do.
Really?
We do both a degree aspect as well as a house aspect as well as sign aspects. So there's multiple levels, and the lunar signs give aspects as well.
And there's 27.
Yeah.
Oh, they give aspect as well?
Yes, of course. How are we going to know what you're desiring, huh? What you want to achieve, what you're desiring to get in life. Any which way.
Okay.
So, and wounds, they have wounds. Someone go for the, why don't you don't have the, let her read the second.
Is this what I have?
Yeah.
86?
86.
And remember, this can be modified by various factors.
If the 8th Lord is placed in the 2nd house, the native will be devoid of physical vigor, will possess little wealth, and will not regain lost wealth.
So, it says devoid of physical vigor. The Sanskrit is bahubalahina. It means they have great strength and a lot of energy, but they're losing it when they go to work. Their work really runs them down. They have little wealth, and they don't regain wealth, meaning if they lend money, they don't get paid back. So somebody with the 8th Lord in the 2nd house, always tell them not to lend money. It's their karma not to get it back, so it's better off just not to lend it, right? But it's moon there, and so with the proper moon mantras, all that can be removed. Yeah. And Shri mantra is a beautiful one. 3rd. Anybody have it in the 3rd? Want to read the 3rd? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Sue-Ann. Sue-Ann's going to go for it.
In case the 8th Lord is done in the 3rd house, the native will be devoid of fraternal happiness, be indolent, devoid of vigor, and without servants.
No servants. No maid.
Fraternal is father?
No brothers.
Oh, I have 3 brothers.
Means brothers, but they don't give you happiness.
Hell no.
Yeah, your brothers give you happiness?
Oh, yeah.
What planet is your... It's Mercury is your 3rd Lord.
It's Mars
Your 8th
and
Lord.
Scorpio in the 3rd.
Yeah. So it's Mars in Scorpio. So it's in its own sign. So it makes it a little bit stronger. Not as bad. Do they ever cause you losses?
Not yet.
So right there we see it needs to be weak to really give the negative effect. Yes.
The indolent.
Lazy.
Lazy about something.
What indolent? I mean,
Lazy. Fourth. Anybody got the 8th Lord in the 4th?
Now, wait a second. You're number 2, second house. It says devoid of physical vigor, and you had a nuanced interpretation of that. If it's in the 3rd house, it also says devoid of vigor. Is it the same nuance or a different one?
Paratre Jaya Salasyam.
Well,
But
first
it's-
one says
This one
devoid of
says
physical vigor,
strength.
this one just says devoid of
Yeah.
vigor.
Yeah, this
Ours
one.
it says strength.
This one is the strength kind of. It's like the strength wears out. Burnout.
This one's indolent.
Lazy.
Devoid of servants and strength.
No servants. I miss my maid in India, I'll tell you.
I'm sure you got an empire for that. No?
$20 a month. She did the laundry, washed the floor every day, did all the dishes.
$20 is a big money.
A lot
She
for
was
her.
the highest paid.
She was the highest paid maid on the block.
I'm sure.
$20 a month?
Yeah.
For media, that's like still it's considerable sum actually.
Yeah.
And which city are we talking about?
Puri.
Puri, it's too much sum.
She thought she was robbing us.
Yeah.
She thought she was robbing us. We were like,
That's
she'd
why-
run away, we'd pay her, she'd run away thinking she like robbed us, and we're like, as long as she's happy,
was it? Cause I'm just thinking like culturally. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, for me reading that as an American, it's like, oh well, who cares, right? I mean.
It means helpers. In general, what is a servant? A servant is somebody who's, paid help.
So if
So
I
it-
hired anybody to help me with.
So it
basic-
shows problems with paid help.
A nanny in this
But because it's your Lord's not that weak, it's still going to show some problems. There'll be some conflict happening there. And this 8th Lord represents stealing, thievery. You might have some stealing issues happen with, it's showing that the relationship with the paid help is, there's something negative going to happen there.
But if you translate that culturally to different, I mean.
That's I'm translating that to here, paid help.
In America, it would be like having a
Could
nanny.
even be the gardener.
A lot of people have nannies in
But-
America.
Gardener, yes.
But it could be, I have a guy that comes and cuts the grass because it's cheaper for me to pay to have him cut the grass than to buy a lawnmower and keep it somewhere.
Right.
So, if I had the combination, who knows what he would run off with, or multiple things like that, or cut the wrong thing, or it's just 8th Lord shows problems.
Right.
So it's showing us the problem area.
Wherever it is.
Showing her, with her, the problem area is with money. With you, it's in this area of brothers or paid help or energy and things of that nature.
Anything that
Paid-
will fit that.
Paid help is that can spread into many different
Yes.
categories. I
Service.
mean,
Yes.
it's like anybody you're hiring.
And that's what the Varga charts are for, to get more specific on where that problem shows up. The divisional charts. Let's get to the next one, because we got a lot to cover still. Who's going for the next one? We did 4th house we're in?
No, third house only.
Okay, but we're on the 4th now.
I'll do it.
Go.
When the 8th Lord occupies the 4th house, the native will be deprived of his mother, and there can be no doubt in it that he will be devoid of a house, lands, and happiness, and will be a betrayer of friends.
It's wrong.
Why a betrayer of friends?
British, wrong words.
Why a betrayer of friends?
Because he's desperate.
More than that.
6 from 11.
4th house shows your heart.
So,
So the 8th Lord in the heart. It's showing that the heart, is not always as pure as it could be. Remember, there's always remedies to fix this. Even the 8th Lord and the 4th, you can do remedies to get land. This is the natural indication. So it's a dangerous combination to do remedies to get land, because often when that's the indication, if you do a remedy, someone dies and leaves you the land. So it's a 8th house being connected with inheritance. Somebody want to go for... Everything else makes sense, right? Land, 4th house, mother. And it won't be all of them. As we notice, everybody, as we're going through them, people will have a problem in one of these areas, but not all of those areas. Have you noticed that? As we're going through, everybody's... Anybody who has in the 4th? Anybody? No?
I have it in the 5th.
Okay, well you go for this next one then.
If the 8th Lord happens to fall in the 5th house, the native will be dull-witted. They will have few children and be long-lived and wealthy.
So which one do you got?
I don't have children.
You got the children one. Anybody got it in the 6th? No one? Why don't you go first, Dave?
In case the 8th Lord is gone in the 6th house, the native will win over his opponents, will have a diseased body, and in childhood he will fear danger through snakes and water.
So it has the good aspect of winning over the opponents, because 6th house is your enemies. So loss goes to the enemies. All the problems go to the enemies. But the body still has disease. It's still the house of disease. And anybody have it in the 7th?
I do. You do too?
Yeah.
Which one of you wants to read?
Go ahead.
Alright.
You, you do the 8th. You go for the 7th.
If the 8th Lord is in the 7th, the native will have 2 wives. If the 8th Lord is conjunct a malefic in the 7th, they will surely be the downfall in his business or livelihood.
So if the 8th Lord is in the 7th, it gives 2 wives, or 2 spouses. Why?
First one is lost.
First one dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or divorce. And then loss in trade. 7th house is also the house of business, right? Okay. So you see how the understanding of the houses are coming through in all these other slokas. Maybe not in the Bhava chapter does he give us all these indications, but slowly as he's giving us all these things, we start to understand the deeper meanings of the houses by these placements. And we got the 8th house.
Should the 8th Lord occupy the 8th house, the native will be long-lived. If he is weak, longevity will be medium. And if the native will be a thief, be blameworthy himself, and will blame others as well.
We kind of already went over that one with Eric here. Anybody got the 8th Lord in the 9th? Okay. Go for it, Mukesh. Read.
If the 8th Lord is in the 9th, the native will betray his religion, be a heterodox, will get a wicked wife, and will steal others' wealth.
Okay, so betrayer of his religion. Eric has this combination.
Oh, that's right.
Eric is a very religious guy. Is he the religion that his parents grew him up with? No, not at all. He was raised Jewish. And he worships Tibetan Vajrayana gods and everything like that. So, in some regards, he might not consider himself a betrayer of his religion, but wouldn't you think his parents and the average traditional Jew would consider him quite the betrayer of the religion, wouldn't they? So it's not always, doesn't have to be negative, but it's definitely showing us the situation.
Is a heterodox one that goes against?
I don't know. What's heterodox? Anybody?
Paramguru Pandit not believing in the God.
Not believing in God.
Okay, it's the opposite of orthodox.
Orthodox, yeah. It's Gnostic. Gnostic is not believing in God. Or traditions.
So
or
why would they
mention what other people would think of.
It's a it's not, well, who thinks, you see, the thing is right here, it's saying betrayer of the religion.
Actually, it says
When I say think, that's when we start putting the label good or bad on betraying the religion.
Actually, if you look at the Sanskrit verse, then it's pretty negative only. It says Ashtamesh tapasthane dharamdrohi chanasteka.
Destroyer, yeah.
What's that mean?
It's basically saying betrayer of the religion and typically the good path. Drohi, dharamdrohi.
Yeah. But he's left his own religion. So good or bad, I'm saying, is a opinion of who's looking. He's not particularly talking about who's looking. He's just saying what the case happens. The person does not follow their own personal, the religion that they were born with. And we're seeing, Eric, he's not here right now, but he's a live example of how this is playing out.
But if Jupiter is the planet, then being in the 9th house.
It all needs to be factored in. He will be the husband of a wicked wife. Or you could say the person will have a wicked spouse. Why a wicked spouse?
9th is the house of fortune. The wife is like part of the fortune, sort of. Bhagyavati.
What do you think, Jaya?
3rd from the 7th.
The 9th house.
Why the 8th Lord in the 9th house gives a wicked wife?
The 9th house of the marriage house?
Is it a marriage house? What connected to the 9th house is marriage? The Navamsha relates to marriage, right? The 9th divisional chart. So it's showing that the 8th Lord is not only hurting the house, it's also hurting the division associated with that house. So that means the 8th Lord, if you look at the indication, when the 8th Lord went to the 4th house, it destroys land, property, everything. So that means the whole D4 is hurt by that 8th Lord going there. The whole division connected with that house is hurt. Interesting, huh?
The D4?
The D4, for if it goes to the 4th house. I'm just saying, if you look at the indications, it's all the same indications as the D4. So it hurts also that whole division associated with that house. Not just that house. Because we don't really look at the 9th house to see about the marriage partner. We're looking at the D9 to see about the marriage partner. So it's showing us that it goes that deep. And we're on the 10th. We're almost done, 8th house, and then we'll take a break and do some good stuff. If the 8th Lord occupies the 10th house, the native will not have paternal bliss. They will be a talebearer and be bereft of livelihood. If there is an aspect in the process from a benefic, then these evils will not mature. So here he's saying that a benefic aspect will make it not so bad. You think that applies to all the other houses? So a very important statement there. He's saying it just on that sloka, probably because, these are all written in verse and they all rhyme and they're in a very important chanda. And so he's not saying it in all of them. But we are assuming that a benefic aspect on any of these combinations will change. So in the case, we saw her moon was the 8th Lord in the 2nd. If a benefic is aspecting that, will that not be the remedy? Yes? So you strengthen the planet aspecting that, the beneficial aspect, if there is one.
Trine, did you say that?
It's a little bit different.
So she has Mercury and Virgo at 4 degrees. And
it's a little bit more complex, the Vedic aspects.
Yeah, imagine.
She has Jupiter aspecting. Jupiter has trine. He's the main trinal planet. Each planet has a different, some planets have squares, some planets have sextiles. Mars primarily has the squares, and Saturn has the sextiles. All the planets have them, but they're partial. They're not strong. but these planets have them in full strength.
Okay.
So Jupiter is aspecting that, and it's placed in the 10th house. So her, by doing guru mantras or by wearing a yellow sapphire, will come out of the suffering of this 8th lord in the 8th house. So if she wants to make money, she needs to do something to strengthen Jupiter. How important that little verse is?
So you are saying that beneficial aspect probably applies to all the other combinations.
Yes. And in the same regards, that also means that a malefic aspect
Would worsen it.
would worsen the situation and ensure that not just one of the negative things comes out, but all of them come out. These aspects will also change during dashas. So during the dasha of Jupiter, she will make lots of money. All her monetary problems will go away. If there's a malefic also having an aspect, which you can see Rahu is third from it, is in the 3rd house, so he has a backward aspect on it, then during Rahu dashas, he's going to really suffer monetarily. So we can see that it'll be ups and downs. And that's why you want to give her something to really strengthen that Jupiter. So even when Rahu comes, Jupiter wins out over that Rahu.
Now, if there's no Graha aspect, could you count Rashi Drishti? Does that count?
You can count it, but it's, it'll help.
It'll help, but it's better to have
But the Rashi Drishti is going to show environmental influences that will help. The Graha Drishti is going to show people and situations that are going to be helping.
What did you say about guru?
Guru mantras.
Guru mantras.
Very important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Guru yoga.
Guru, worship of the Guru.
Right.
Whatever you get to bring more, the more Guru, you see, worshiping Guru, it strengthens Jupiter.
Okay.
The stronger you make Jupiter, the easier your monetary reality is.
Okay.
What's a talebearer?
Somebody who's telling stories. That's my guess.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
A
Talebearer.
Someone who tells false stories. Or like
Pishuna, I
tall
don't know this
tales.
word in Sanskrit.
What does it say?
It says Pishuna.
No.
I don't have any idea what does this word means.
I don't know. I think my interpretation was liar, but we can look it up during the break.
Yeah,
Well, it sounds
you have
more like
Sanskrit
a
dictionary?
person who,
Yeah,
like,
we'll look it up during the break.
who says things that are like fish stories. They're stories.
That's my thought, maybe.
Yeah.
But let's read the few and then take a break. We got 2 more. Who wants to do the 11th?
Should the 8th lord be placed in the 11th house, the native will be devoid of wealth, be miserable in boyhood, but happy in later life. And if the 8th lord be in conjunction with a benefic, be long-lived.
So this was also mentioned previously. Remember, the 8th lord went to the 11th house. It shows long life. Here it's reiterating that. But it shows miserable early childhood. Life gets better as you go along. And one more. Go for it.
If the 8th lord is in the 12th, the native will spend on evil deeds and will incur a short life. More so if there be additionally a malefic in the said house.
Okay, so 2 things that are important about this verse. 12th house. Why 8th lord in the 12th house makes a person spend on evil deeds?
The house of expense.
It's a house of expense, and what are they spending on?
8th house.
8th house stuff. Negative things. Now notice here, he doesn't say the aspect of a malefic, he says the conjunction of a malefic. Makes it worse. That means it's not just, but the previous verse said the aspect of a benefic. It also means that if it's conjunct a benefic, like if her moon was conjunct Jupiter, Jupiter would also help. Bring her out. Okay? So it's conjunction or aspect. And with malefics, it's conjunction or aspect that'll make it worse. Oh.
Typically, which one is stronger out of conjunction or aspect?
It'll all depend on the sign and the tattvas and various things. So, conjunction is generally a little stronger, but not always.
How would he spend his wealth on evil deeds?
Parivartana can be is the strongest of them all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you give some examples?
Of what?
Spending wealth on evil deeds. in
Why, do you got that?
relation to the 8th house.
No?
Going to
Where's
Las-
yours, huh?
Going to Las
I
Vegas?
don't know.
Oh, okay. It's showing, you see, the planet in the 12th house, if there's benefits, like, for example, if Jupiter is in the 12th house, the person is spending their money on their guru. So they're losing that planet in the 12th house that makes them lose money, but at least it's going to the guru. If Venus is there, they're spending on comforts and pleasures. If Rahu's there, they're spending their money on gambling and partying and drugs. Saturn, they're wasting it on alcohol and getting drunk.
But Saturn in 12th house also is said to be making somebody Vairagyatic. It's a spiritual side, right?
Yeah, they drink so much they've ruined themselves. It depends on if it's aspected by benefics, then it's going to maybe more make them spiritual. If it's aspected by malefics and it's the 8th lord,
And
we got to calculate all these factors in. So it shows, don't read just, look at the lordship, look at the aspects, look at everything, look at what sign it's in. You see how all these played out differently in the different charts based on what sign it was in, whether it was aspected by malefics, whether it's conjunct malefics, everything. We got to factor everything in.
So if Jupiter were not the 7th and 10th lord, but the 8th lord in the 12th, it would be...
Then the person probably has a pretty lousy guru who is like sucking them dry.
Gambling and delay.
No, the guru just says, "Oh, you need this. Come, and we'll do a 2-week sadhana for you." And they throw them in a room and take a few grand off of them, and the guru's milking them a little bit more. Maybe that could be one situation. It's as the 8th lord, it shows it's more of a negative situation, but it's still related to a guru. So the guru is making them lose through some negative situation. In some which way, we gotta. If there's benefits aspecting that, then maybe there still could be some benefit, and it could just be occult type related things. But if malefics are aspecting that, then we're guaranteed that the guru is milking them. Maybe, relatively speaking, right? But you see how it all makes sense. So we're done the 8th house. Happy Jupiter and Scorpio transit, everybody. And let's eat.